Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC Fight Night. What's going to be UFC Fight Night in Vegas, the 71st edition on April 22nd, with the prelims starting at 3 p.m. Central Time. So the main card will start a little earlier than what's usually seen for the United States cards. Headlining this not pay-per-view, just regular fight night will be Pavlovich, versus Curtis Blaydes, a heavyweight fight with some pretty severe implications here. As you know, I would say the winner of this fight is likely next in line to challenge the belt. Before we get too deep into things, let's recap what occurred this last weekend, with Holloway fighting Arnold Allen for a featherweight bout here. What would be the featherweight GOAT if there was no Alexander Volkanovski. And both Jose and I had Holloway with pretty high weights, and he got the job done. Overall, I was 3-2, 4-2 if you include the last disclaimer pick that we made at the end of the show. And the main thing that was disappointing there for us was this Dustin Jacoby loss. We both had Dustin Jacoby at a 3-weight. Tough to see that loss there, but overall we still went positive for the night. So getting into things here, let's continue this momentum forward as we discuss this card. Starting with my 5-weight as usual, we're going to get into things with the co-main event, because my most confident pick for this Saturday, the 22nd, is Ricky Simón. He is fighting Yadong Song and is the minus 138 favorite. Song is the plus 108 underdog. Simón's coming off a pretty impressive win streak here, and Song Yadong's coming off a loss against Corey Sandhagen, who's been doing a lot of great things in this division himself, so that's a very respectable loss. Jose, what do you have for a weight on this fight?
So for this fight, I'm not too far off. I actually have Ricky Simón as my 3-weight. Reason being is he's extremely good. I definitely agree with you that he's going to get the win. He has phenomenal wrestling, but Yadong Song, again, just coming off that loss to Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen just racked up another win. That's a legitimate loss. And Yadong Song is extremely young, and he's on a really good team with Team Alpha Male. So I truly believe that his striking also is extremely phenomenal. So I think his wrestling aspect is going to be prepared for what Ricky Simón's going to come with pressing forward. But Yadong Song, he's got that power to put someone's lights out as well. So, but Ricky Simón, I think he's going to press him hard against the cage and not let go of his wrist. And I think he's overall the better grappler. So I think he's going to drag out and possibly get a decision victory. Ricky Simón, half of his wins come via decision, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a decision win. But again, Yadong Song is he's an extreme threat. And he's still in the game. He's extremely young. So that's why I have Ricky Simón as my 3-weight, Nick.
Yeah, dude, and that's a great assessment there. And definitely one of the things that would concern me betting against Song would be the fact that he is on Team Alpha Male with a lot of great grapplers on that team. And you would think he would be ready for that side of Ricky, but I don't know, man. To what degree can that prepare him for a guy like Ricky? I'm not sure. I still think Ricky is going to be able to, like you kind of mentioned, use his pressure and get takedowns if he wants. It might not be as easy as some guys in the past like he has. But like he's fought against Perello and Kelleher, he's gotten like 13 takedowns, but like that's obviously not going to be the case against Song here. But I still think if he does get the takedown, what you mentioned about potentially getting a decision win here, maybe he doesn't finish the fight. I'm just looking at taking Simón here money line more than anything, because I'm not quite sure exactly how the fight's going to conclude, but definitely very confident in Simón getting the win here.
I agree with you, Nick. And I mean, Ricky Simón, I agree. He's gonna get the win. I'm not sure exactly what method, because I mean, he's Jack Shore's only loss thus far, and Jack Shore, there was a lot of momentum riding with him, and Jack Shore, since that loss to Ricky Simón, has bounced back and racked up another win. So Ricky Simón, and he finished him via triangle, so arm triangle, I should say. So it's very valuable that he could finish Yadong Song as well. But again, it's since he does have a lot of decisions, and I want to say he has more experience, but since he's older, he probably has a little more unofficial experience, like just vet experience, I should say, or just overall practice and just been in it longer. So for this one, I will take Ricky Simón, but I don't think it's going to be an easy win for him. So that's why, again, I have him as my 3-weight, Nick.
Sure. And I think we're getting some great odds here too, minus 138. In all honesty, when I was looking at this, man, I was looking at it before I looked at the odds, and I was expecting Simón to be a bigger favorite, at least 2-1 or something like that. But seeing him at minus 138 here, I'm definitely going to be making some just individual money line bets on him straight up, man, because that seems like a great deal.
Well, yeah, that sounds good to me, man. So yeah, you have him as your 5-weight, and I have him as my 3-weight. And now that goes on to my 5-weight. And for my 5-weight, this is the fight between Bobby Green and Jared Gordon. For this fight, Bobby Green, he is the betting favorite at right now. FanDuel has him at minus 310, while Jared Gordon is the betting underdog at plus 230. For this, yeah, I have the favorite. I have Bobby Green. But before I move on, Nick, what fight do you have this weight at? What weight do you have this fight at?
I agree with you on Bobby Green. He's one of my bigger picks here. Bobby Green's actually my 4-weight, man. I'm very confident in him getting the job done. I think Flash Gordon's a great fighter, but I think he's going to kind of look to wrestle. And Bobby Green is, in my opinion, shown in the past that he's able to defend takedowns really well. In his fight against Makhachev that he lost, Makhachev did land a takedown, but otherwise Makhachev had to win that fight with KOs. I think Bobby Green, in the most case, can dictate if this fight stays on the feet, and he has the advantage there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to be fair, in that fight against Islam too, that was like a last minute replacement match too. So granted, it was only one round, but he showed something for what he was in there, and him just having a longer reach and being the slightly bigger guy in this matchup is also why I'm siding with him. Jaron Gordon, dude, he's jumped up and down from featherweight, and to be honest, losing to Patty, I like there's a lot of momentum behind Patty, but I don't know so much. If like a lot of people think he won that too. So losing to Patty, I rather lose to Drew Dober than Patty, that's for sure, if I'm like in the UFC. So I think Bobby, for that reason alone, him having a longer reach and just having more experience with better guys overall, I think is no question why he's a big favorite in this one. So it's hard not to side with him on this. So that's why I have him as my 5-weight.
Yeah, man, and Gordon has a couple KOs on his record for sure, but I'm not expecting him to get a KO on Bobby Green here. And guys who have got a KO on Bobby Green, like Drew Dober, I mean, I think Drew Dober is kind of the kind of guy who's like ready to take 5-6 punches so he can land a power bomb on you. And I think he ended up getting one on Bobby Green. I don't think Jared Gordon has that kind of power. I don't expect him to get a knockout on Bobby Green. And if anything, I would expect, if anything, Bobby Green to get the decision win with some volume and end up kind of winning via a stand-up kind of game.
Yeah, and well, I know it hasn't been it's been a minute, but I mean, who knows? Even Bobby Green can get the knockout. It's been a minute since Jared Gordon's been knocked out, but Charles Oliveira KO'd Jared Gordon in the first round back in 2019, which so, and he has been finished a few times. And Bobby Green, like I've seen, he's got his win over Nasra as well in 2022. Bobby Green definitely the bigger guy in that matchup via unanimous decision. So. Yeah, I definitely would side with Bobby Green. I wouldn't know like what method he would win this, but I wouldn't be surprised also if he happens to finish Jared Gordon within the 3 rounds.
So yeah, that's your 5-weight, and that's my 4-weight.
That's your 4-weight. So we feel pretty strong about that one.
Yep.
And then my 4-weight. For my 4-weight, I have Yasmin Lucindo. This is the females fight, and between her and Brogan Walker. And right now, Yasmin Lucindo is the betting favorite at minus 310, while Brogan Walker is the betting underdog at plus 230. What weight do you have this fight at, Nick?
So I'm this one, we're going to disagree on the first one for the show here. I have Brogan Walker as a 3-weight, so a little less confident than a 4-weight spot. I think Brogan Walker, just to me, with her previous experience in Invicta, shows that she at least has seen a lot of really good talent in women's MMA. I understand that she had a tough loss against Juliana Miller, but I don't know if we can just expose her for having one bad night, saying she's just a pathetically bad fighter and deserves to be as big of an underdog as she is. But I'm curious to hear your perspective as well.
So yeah, so for this one, I have Lucindo, and reason being is her being just significantly younger, and the amount of KO she has on her out of her like short career with 13 wins, 8 of them are via KO. And again, like you said, like you don't want to write off like the last fight with Juliana Miller for Brogan Walker, but Juliana Miller too. Her she's to get TKO'd by her is kind of crazy because she's more of a submission grappler. So that being said, I'm expecting like this matchup of Brogan Walker being put against someone who's going to come more heavy with the fists as opposed to grappling is disadvantage for her because I do think that this younger girl is gonna this younger fighter is gonna come in and try to knock her head off. And even though Brogan Walker does have a longer reach advantage, I'm not too concerned about Iasmin Lucindo closing the gap because she's proven time and time again that she can get in there and stand up with people that are taller than her, even though she doesn't have that much UFC experience and she is coming off a decision loss. I think like for her, I'm gonna ride with Iasmin Lucindo, but for this one, yeah, that's why she's my 4-weight.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough, man. And I like Lucindo a lot. I think with her age considered, she's got a lot of potential in the UFC and in women's MMA to be great. And I'm excited to see where she can take it. But I think just as a snapshot of where we are right now in April of 2023, I think Brogan Walker has seen more in the ring against fighters like Miranda Maverick, Erin Blanchfield. She went the distance, 3 rounds with both of them. I just think, I'm definitely leaning on this being an over 2.5 kind of rounds fight because Brogan Walker is not going to end up knocking out Lucindo. I think that's pretty well known. But if Brogan Walker can ride it out, maybe get a takedown or two, I'm not saying she'll get a submission or anything, but I think just kind of do her thing and ride out like she did against Miranda Maverick and get a decision win would be the ideal here for Brogan Walker. She's got a lot, to me, it's mainly just that experience argument. So we'll see what ends up happening here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree. Yeah, like it's very valuable that if Brogan Walker, can ride it out all 3 rounds and coast to a decision. That I can see that being a case too. So that's why I think Lucinda would come in swinging heavy with her hands.
That's one also thing before we move on. I also wanted to mention too is that previously she's fought at flyweight 125 and this is at 115. And I just wanted to make a note that this potentially could benefit her there because I think size wise she's going to be a better 115 pounder than a 125 pounder. She kind of matches up in size with Lucindo really well, and ends up, I think, being maybe a little undersized at 125. Maybe it's not that big of a difference, but I think this is a good decision. I think, assuming she looks good on the scale and everything, she's going to be a better version of herself, maybe a little quicker than usual.
Yeah, for sure. So there you guys have it. Yeah, I have Yasmin Lucindo as my 4-weight, and Nick has Brogan Walker as his 3-weight.
Correct. So that brings us to the 2 weights then. My 2-weight, we've gotten 5, 4, and 3 out of the way. So now we're down to 2 and 1 for both of us. And my 2-weight, we're going to finally get to the main event here. I've got Curtis Blaydes as my 2-weight, man. Look, I think this is going to be a really interesting fight, and it was hard for me to pick a side here. I can say that no matter what, I don't think I'm putting a dime on this fight monetarily. I think it's way too risky to be betting on heavyweights in the UFC for the most part. Aside from John Jones against anyone, I'll always take John Jones, and especially when he fights Stipe, I'll mortgage my house against that fight. I mean, no doubt about it. But without getting off track here, Jose, what do you have on this fight?
So for this one, I have him pretty high up. Like I actually have him as my 1. Reason being is just the wrestling experience and overall just the level of competition Curtis Blaydes has gone against. But here's the thing that's scary. Like you said, like this could go either way because it's the heavyweight division. I mean, Sergei could totally knock Curtis Blaydes out, similar to how Francis and Derek Lewis have knocked Curtis Blaydes out. They don't have to be the best wrestlers. They just have to have that heavyweight power and to put him out. So yeah, like Curtis Blaydes loves to come forward and wrestle a lot, But if they can time him, they can knock him out like Derek Lewis did. He's going to go shoot for a takedown, just boom, uppercut, or hit him just somewhere in the face. So, but if Curtis Blaydes can implement his game plan how he wants, I think he can just ground and pound his way to decision victory against Sergei. So that's what I'm banking on is more as of his UFC experience, but that's also why he's my one way, because I'm not as confident, because Sergei can, put him lights out at any given moment.
So just to make sure, your one weight is Curtis?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so in a sense, we're both kind of on the same page there. Obviously, he's my two weight, and I have a similar thought process there. But I also add on the fact that also Sergey is 5-1 in his 6 UFC fights, with his one being against his fight opener against Overeem. Not a single one of those fights has gone out of the first round, man. And for this to potentially go for 25 minutes, dude, I'll take Curtis Blaydes day and night, all day long. As far as cardio goes too, I think Curtis Blaydes could wrestle it out and find ways to last a little longer. I'd be definitely concerned if I have my money on Pavlovich and Curtis Blaydes is not limp in the octagon by the end of round 2, man. I'm like thinking like, okay, well, how much more does Pavlovich have? Maybe I could be surprised, but just the fact that I haven't seen it yet and now he's the main event, man, that's a little risky for me. So I'm definitely, that's another big factor on why I have Blaydes here. But just the fact that you mentioned, man, this is the UFC, this is a heavyweight division. Pavlovich, definitely. I mean, there's really no argument to say that he has the most dangerous swing in the entire UFC now that Francis is gone. No one in the UFC has as many. To me, I mean, Derek Lewis, I guess it could be the argument, but Derek Lewis is kind of out of his prime now, and Pavlovich has like 14 KOs on his record, man, in his professional record. It's just crazy. So Pavlovich's power can end this fight at any time. But in the end, I kind of agree with you that I think Curtis Blaydes can outlast it and get outside of it. Once you're outside of the first 10 minutes of that fight, I think Curtis Blaydes has a huge advantage.
Yeah, so there you guys have it. Nick has Curtis Blaydes as his 2-weight, and I have him as my 1-weight. Again, they're so low just because, against the heavyweight division, and it's Sergei's, that crazy power. And then that leaves one more fight for us to talk about. And that's, my 2-weight, which this fight is between Bruno Silva and Brad Tavares. And right now, Brad Tavares, he is the betting favorite at -166, while Bruno Silva is the betting underdog at +130. I'm gonna say it right here, like Bruno Silva, he's gonna be one of my underdogs for the night, so I have him taking this as my 2-weight. So he must be your 1-weight, Nick. Or who's your 1-weight? I guess I should say. My bad.
Yeah, you're right about, obviously, by process of elimination, this has my 1-weight pick, and I did end up agreeing with you on Silva. I just obviously don't have as much confidence, mainly because of his. But usually, I'm not the kind of guy to look at like a recent fight and be like, oh, that's it. And that's kind of the main reason I was like, you know what, I'm not going to overlook it. I'm still going to pick Silva because everybody has a bad night. But the fact that he got beat by that badly by Meerschaert is a little bit concerning. I mean, he's supposed to be a big prospect, and he gave Herrera a really tough fight in there when he lost via decision earlier last year, about a year ago now, after beating Jordan Wright in a round 1 knockout. So I still think Bruno Silva has a lot of potential. He's in his low 30s, which could be argued to being like pretty much still in his prime. And I still think he's live for a knockout, really, in any situation. Brad Tavares has shown to have been knocked out a couple of times in the UFC. So, I think that's a live option there, and I definitely wouldn't be as comfortable taking Brad Tavares, seeing the losses he's had as of late.
Dude, yeah, right on. That's the thing. Brad Tavares, you look at it one way. Brad Tavares, he's gone against big names like Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya. Recently, Dricus du Plessis, and he's lost to Edmund Shabazian. So he's gone against some big names, Nate Marquardt, Yoel Romero back in the day. So yeah, Lorenz Larkin. He's seemed the who's who. He's been in the UFC for a while. He's not much older. He's 35 and Bruno Silva's 33, so he's actually not that much older, but both guys have a lot of experience. As a matter of fact, Bruno Silva does have overall more wins on his record, and he was on a killer streak of finishing KOs and TKOs up until, like as you mentioned, he gave Alex Pereira a good fight. and lasting in all 3 rounds. So losing to him, no shame in that whatsoever. But yeah, the Gerald Meerschaert, especially how Gerald's most recent performance was, seeing how quick that ended for him, it is a little concerning. But losing submission to him, then when you see that, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. It's Gerald Meerschaert winning by submission, and I don't think Brad Tavares is going to really be a threat with submission. He's only have 2 on his record, and yeah, I agree with you. Bruno Silva, he's probably there's a good chance he can probably put Brad Tavares out. As you mentioned, he doesn't have the toughest chin, and 19 KOs out of 22 wins. That's a scary stat. So yeah, for this one, I do side with Bruno Silva, but he's at my 2-weight just because again, Brad Tavares, he can bring out that vet side just because he's seen the who's who in the UFC middleweight division.
Yeah, that's true, man. But honestly, that's a wonderful underdog spot. Seeing the fact that we can get a guy as strong as Bruno Silva as an underdog, man, that's juicy. So keep an eye out on our Twitter at Moneyline MMA for our picks on Saturday to see if Bruno Silva ends up being our underdog of the week. You'll definitely want to consider making him a live bet. Just put it on him. I think he's a great option there. We got a couple favorites. And if you like my 3-weight and Brogan Walker, she's a plus 230 underdog. I think that's an extremely interesting opportunity for her to make some people a lot of money. So that being said, also subscribe to us on YouTube. Let us know down below in the comments who you'll be betting on. And we will, of course, be back at you next week for the next UFC event. Until then, take it easy and thanks for listening.